de mis días y quedé solo con mi dolor. Yo que por ti daba hasta mi vida, me fui muriendo por tu traición, al darme cuenta que me mentías y que era de otro tu corazón. Porque eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, te aprovechas de mí, porque fui siempre un romántico. Eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, mentirosa, yo ya no creo en tu llanto. Con una sola de tus caricias me enamoraste, con la primera de tus mentiras me destrozaste. Eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, mentirosa, yo ya no creo en tu llanto. Sin importar que te di mi vida, me abandonaste sin compasión, te fuiste a un mundo de fantasía y quedé solo con mi dolor. Pero este mundo que gira un día ha de traerte junto a mi amor, y para entonces, querida mía, ya será de otra mi corazón. Porque eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, te aprovechas de mí, porque fui siempre un romántico. Eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, mentirosa, yo ya no creo en tu llanto. Con una sola de tus caricias me enamoraste, con la primera de tus mentiras me destrozaste. Porque eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, te aprovechas de mí, porque fui siempre un romántico. Eres falsa, como moneda de plástico, mentirosa, yo ya no creo en tu llanto.
Every Sunday morning, the sun shines bright. Grab your favorite mug, let's take flight. With the Coffee Time podcast, we gather around, talking about Colombia, where love is found. Expats share their stories, dreams unfold. In this coffee triangle, adventures bold. Oh, coffee time, bring us together. With laughter and love, we'll face any weather. From the mountains high to the valleys wide, in this coffee hug, we find our pride. From Medellin to Cali, Cartagena's shores, exploring this country, we open new doors. Tips and tales shared, we laugh and we learn.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Quindio Colombia. It's about 70 degrees. It's been kind of cool lately. Going against type. Going to have a high of 75, a low of 62. It's probably not accurate. It's probably going to be a little bit warmer. We're in the midst of a lot of wind and rain, which is nice. I like it. Okay, let's see. Let me skim through the chat here. Here we go. Turtle here. Hello, Mr. Turtle. Papala. Good morning from Montreal. Tommy, can you hear me? Good morning to all. B. Nick, how you doing? Buen dia, Senor Lauren. Good morning to you. Olga, good morning. How are you? Dan the expat. It's a beautiful morning in Armenia, Colombia. Every day. Every day. Yuka, what the heck, Yuka? Thank you very much. My goodness, thank you very much. That was a bit of a shocker. Krosa, greetings from Tampa Bay. 9 more days before arriving to the farm. Have a great show. How long are you going to be here? And we'll definitely get up. Check out that farm. All right. Just a reminder, I am currently streaming live on X and on a fairly new platform called Kick. Don't know. What the heck? You see how it goes. And of course, Rumble. I am not streaming any longer live to YouTube. But after a day or so, I take a copy of this and I will upload it to YouTube. And YouTube will promptly set me off little nasty grams telling me that I'm doing this, that, and the other thing wrong. Yeah, well, ciao. Sayonara. All right, let's see. Quick rundown. Not much going on with me this week. This Friday and Monday, it's a big event for me. It's my first major follow-up since the heart attack. I don't remember if it's Friday or if it's Monday. I think it's Monday. I don't know, one or the other. They hook me up to a 24-hour thing and just kind of watch me when I'm sleeping and all that kind of recording everything. I don't know what they call it. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So that'll be interesting. I have been taking my blood pressure and some other specs because you can get cheap these little monitor things now. I got one for, I think it was like $28,000, handful of that one, not even $10. And anyway, every day I've been taking my blood pressure, monitoring it, that kind of stuff, and it's all been cool. It's all been very good, better than it's been in forever. So that's cool. So anyway, that's my big event this week. I keep getting asked, "What's going on with Sharik? What's going on with Sharik?" She likes to stay somewhat private for a very outgoing person, but I'll spill the beans a little bit. I think I mentioned last week that she went to work for this company in Pereira, and it's not really for the money. This company is a private company that does farm visits and lab testing for actually everything, but they got a big thing on coffee. And just like the Coffee Federation does lab testing to measure grades, they have the ability to do that. But they do it with all crops, and they're for hire outfit. And she went to work for them, and they gave her a car to drive, which is funny because she had a very rude awakening. She had to go. They span a pretty good swath of this area of Colombia, all the way from Palmyra, which is almost to Cali, to Pereira, where she is, and Risaralda, the other side of Pereira. So that's a big area that they service. And she had to visit a couple farms in Palmyra. So she drives there, and it's dawned on her that with all the tolls and gas, just the normal expenses, she was blown away. I mean, you can get a bus ticket there for like 40,000 pesos, but you go through 2 tolls and you've spent 40,000 pesos, and that's just one way. So yeah, she was crying the blues about that. But let's see what else. Yeah, so oh, this was pretty cool. She wanted to test my coffee, and so she took some. I had some maybe 50 grams of whole bean bourbon rosado sitting in a bag. So not very much. It's like a couple of espressos. So she took that and tested it out, and now it blew her away. And so she started drinking my coffee because she says it's so smooth. She doesn't get jittery, and she doesn't get wired. And that's what I've been telling you. Just because your coffee wasn't that great. Anyway, so bottom line is she's doing well. Why did she take this job? For added knowledge, but connections. Connections in Colombia is everything. It doesn't slow her coffee thing down at all. And she has some flexibility. So if she wants to go to a show, it actually ties into the job that she's doing. And she hasn't told me what she gets paid, but it's got to be pretty well because she got an apartment in the building next door. It's not cheap. And she got some new clothes. And of course, her coffee business is killing it too. I'm kind of jealous. She's probably making twice what my retirement pay is. And in Colombia, that's pretty damn good. Okay. And we'll get to the news here in a minute. Let me run through these chats. Let's see, where are we? Here we go. This time only for 8 days. We'll be back in September for a couple of weeks. Okay. Jen, good morning from Vancouver. How you doing? Holter monitor. What? What is that? Holter vest. What are we talking about? What is the property tax situation like in Colombia? Something I've never looked into. Very low and very forgiving. I have a friend here who's actually finally sold her property too cheap. And it's about an eighth what the value was, but she really needed to sell it. But she was behind something like 6 or 7 years in her property tax, which amounted to about $300 or $400, something like that. That was maybe a 10 or 12 acre farm with a house on it. Hi from Vancouver. How you doing? Monitoring your heart overnight. Oh. Holter or Halter? It says Holter. That's the name, Holter? Holter vest? Vest? That doesn't sound good. I have to sleep in the damn thing. All right. Yeah, I didn't know the name, so I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. But thank you. All right, let's see. Let's
Here comes the latest from Quindio, with rhythm and flavor, up-to-date news. It's starting now.
Nothing real exciting. Few interesting things. Gasping a little bit for air. I go through that every once in a while. It's nowhere near as bad as it was. Now it hits me almost like little spells. I don't know why it's like that, but I'm sleeping a heck of a lot better. For quite a while, I couldn't sleep unless I was sitting up. All right, first news item. The SIC, that's a commercial watchdog organization, imposes a multi-million-dollar fine. That's in pesos, multi-million peso fine, but it was I think 600,000 or 600 million pesos, which pretty substantial on Exito. That's a supermarket. It's kind of like a super Walmart for violating consumer rights. Now, this isn't the first time, and that caused the fine to be considerably higher. They're 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 doing a lot of things that are just not legal here. Um, they're posting things up without the total pricing information. They have a system here also that, okay, you got a price for one product, you get a price for the other, but maybe they're different weights. And so you also have that comparison. So if one's 10 grams and the other is 15 grams, but you'll have the price, but then you have the price per gram so that you can actually compare the two. Same as in the US. Well, they have that here also. Advertising that promotes a sale for a certain product and it turns out they only had one. All those kind of scammy games, they've been outlawed here for a long time. But Exito, which a lot of people here despise, they'll shop there, but hate it. It reminds you a lot of Walmart. Nobody talks good about it, but then you see them in the store. But Exito comes up a lot when you talk about bad corporations or corporate greed or something. Exito is like the first one out of somebody's mouth. And so anyway, it's interesting that they follow up. I've got a bit of the news article here. It's also found chain required the presentation of a payment slip or invoice for a guarantee. You can't do that here, but they do. So if you buy something there and you bring it back in here, if you don't have the original slip, you still get the guarantee. But at Exito, they were violating that. Imposing an additional burden not contemplated by current regulations. Yeah, SIC also noted that promotions were carried out without indicating the quantity of products. In one case, they had one, or incentives available, which could have led to misunderstandings or confusions about it's funny how they soft pedal everything here. It was a bait and switch. I mean, come on, call it what it is, which could lead to misunderstanding. Yeah. This was compounded by the failure to display correct change availability notices at the cash registers, depriving customers of clear information about their right to receive exact change. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things, and I appreciate that they have those laws. Some people look at Colombia like it's primitive and there's no protections and there's no safety nets, and it's just not true. All right, what's next one here? Man was attacked with a sharp weapon, apparently to prevent robbery in his establishment. Homeless guy, which has been a growing problem here, as I mentioned a few weeks ago. And they're trying to clear. They actually are doing things to clear them out of town. Most of these people are homeless by choice, proven by the fact that they have programs to help the homeless with a place to sleep and food and help them get a job, and they turn it down because they'd rather stay on the street, beg for money, steal, and buy drugs and do whatever they want to do. So it's an issue. And so the homeless guy comes into his restaurant, tries to steal some stuff, and he went to stop him, and the homeless guy stabbed him. People came to his aid. He's doing fine. the homeless guy ran out in the street. The cops were nearby, chased him down, caught the guy. Turns out that he had just done the same thing and stabbed somebody else like recently. So he won't be doing that except maybe in prison because, they nabbed him. So that was pretty cool. And put more maps up where things are. Okay. So it's right here. It's right at the edge of El Centro, right where that arrow is. That's where it took place. Corner of 23rd and 13th. All right. Kidnapping attempt foiled. It says Genoa. It's actually Hanova. It's the translation. Merchant rescued safe and sound. This story is pretty interesting. He was grabbed right in town and thrown in a van. He was grabbed. There were 3 people, I believe it was, and they grabbed him and they threw him in the van and took off. And there was another car that had somebody else that was with the van, and they took off. Hanova is out there. Well, let me show you. See where Armenia is, and all the way down there at the bottom, that's Hanova. There's one road that gets there. It's a narrow 2-lane that sometimes in the air it's not even open, so it's kind of an isolated area. And of course, steep mountains. We are in the Andes. So the van and the car took off up into the mountains, and people saw it. People noticed it. Police were on it right away, and they ended up with a chase in the mountains. And what the heck? Something happened. God, I should have read it. I read it yesterday. Something happened, and the guy who was kidnapped managed to open the door and jump out. And when he did that, the other people in the van freaked out and also jumped out of the van. And the guy in the car took off. So they all beat it on foot because in the mountains they figured, well, you can't catch them. Well, this was the National Police, and it was the 5th Mountain Battalion military that were chasing these guys down. And that's what they do all day. The military hike up and down these mountains all day long, and they promptly caught all of them. It turns out there was concern, are these part of a guerrilla group? Which is kind of why I'm telling this particular news item. It turns out that they weren't any kind of particular guerrilla group. They're just your random, run-of-the-mill, non-affiliated criminals. And they just thought because this guy was popular, that if they kidnapped him, they could pick up some quick cash. And if their escape plan going up in the mountains, nobody's going to get us up here. Yeah. So anyway, happy ending. And my last news story, colorful skies, Pueblo Tapao town prepares for its second kite festival. Now, I'm telling this kite story because there's something more to this. Now, Pueblo Tapao, first of all, it's one of my favorite little villages right there on the map. We went out to see one of the retirement homes out near there. Mike lived out there for a while, 1 or 2 years, one maybe. He moves around. I think he's lived in 4 or maybe even 5 places since he's been here. He's bad as me. Pardon. Okay. So the reason, where is it here? Got that. There we go. It's the map. And I looked up ChatGTP, so I'm just going to read this ChatGTP thing here about kites. because if you live here or you visit here this time of year, you'll see kites for sale all up and down the streets in town, out in the country. They sell kites all over the place. And you go, what the heck are all these kites for? So this is what ChatGPT says. Kite-related festivities in Colombia, especially in Quindio. Festival del Viento y las Cometas, Wind and Kite Festival, Boyacá. While not in Quindio, this is the most iconic kite festival in Colombia and likely explains why kites are seen for sale along roads, especially in August. The festival happens annually in mid-August when strong winds, ideal for kite flying, sweep through the region. Remember, I started the show off saying wind and rain. Lots of wind in August. The festival began August 7th, 1975, timed to coincide with the anniversary of the Battle of Boyacá. That's the major battle pivotal moment in Colombia's independence. Over time, it's evolved into a highly competitive, now this is ChatGPT talking, to a highly competitive and celebrated event featuring kite categories such as artisan, nighttime, show kites, giant kites, and team formations. The festival transformed the Villa de Leyva, the town, into a hub where kites are sold extensively on street corners, from car trunks, craft shops, and more, creating a bustling market scene leading up to and during the event. Quindio's National Kite Festival is in La Tebaida. Quindio does indeed have its own kite-related occasion. The National Festival of Kites is celebrated in August in the town of La Tebaida, Quindio. This aligns with the country's ChatGPT is long-winded. With the country's windy season and mirrors the regional joy in kite flying. Such local festivities often lead to an increase in kite sales along the roads in the vicinity. Why kites are sold along the roads? That seems obvious. Seasonal demand, August winds make it prime time for kite flying, creating demand. Festival excitement, sellers seize the opportunity to attract festival goers. All right, I've had enough of that. Let me get out of that. Okay. It isn't just La Tebaida and now in Pueblo Tapao. That's all south of us. You see it all over the place. People love flying kites. So while it started near Bogota, it has kind of grown. It's like, it was a lot of fun. They came back and they instituted it all over the place here. So, whoop. What did I do here? Bear with me. Gotta quit pushing the wrong buttons. All right. Enough of the kites. Let me get on with something else here. All right. A little bit corny. Tell me what you think. Coffee Time Exotic Mocha is so rich, it asked me to sign a prenup. CoffeeTimeExotics.com. Coffee Time Exotic Bourbon Rosado is so smooth, I feel like it's trying to flirt with me. CoffeeTimeExotics.com. Coffee Time Exotic Bourbon Rosado is like a romance novel in a cup. Well, minus the drama and plus more caffeine. CoffeeTimeExotics.com. Yeah, I was playing a little bit. Those are, I posted them up in a few places. They're kind of a rough thing that I'm planning to do. I've got a whole bunch of little corny statements to say like that. And let's see, we're going to get to the main topic here in just a second. I'll check the chat. I'm going to do an actual ad read because I'm required to. I have to do 6 in a month. All right, where are we here? Halter. Miguel Uribe passed away for national news. Made my news feed. Yeah, it's all the talk. There's lots of talk about who did it. It's a pretty interesting story. 15-year-old kid, but he was put up to it by somebody. They're trying to track that down. But he was 38 years old, and he was kind of Colombia's John F. Kennedy. He was a very young candidate for president and very middle of the road, well connected in his family. His great grandfather, I believe, was president. So there was a lot of interest in it, and it was all over the news. Everybody was talking about it. I didn't mention it because it doesn't. I try to get stuff that comes into play or have interest if you live here or you're thinking about living here or even coming on vacation. Things that somehow related to, have a connection to me, you, like that. I avoid topics for the most part that, well, this is a huge thing. It has no effect on us here at all, in the least. So, I have to pick, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 headlines, and I try to keep them more localized. Libby, you are back. Oh, I clicked something off. I'm using a camera, and this camera is being used in 2 different places at the same time. And you have to set up a phantom camera. So you have a camera and a phantom camera in order to do that. You can't run 2 feeds off of one camera. You have to create an artificial, like it's like pretending it's a different camera. And I accidentally clicked off one of them. And so it showed the software that created that artificial camera for me. Yeah, I get clicking at things, and that's the way it goes. Tommy, good ones. I don't know. I thought they were kind of cute. I was thinking when I was a kid, we had a Rambler station wagon, and it had a seat in the back, and we traveled all over the place. And when back in the day, you played these stupid games. The one I hated, I see something red. Oh my God, hated that one. But if we're going somewhere, the first one to spot a particular landmark, for example, if we're going up to the Thousand Islands, the first one that could spot the tower of the St. Lawrence River, the Thousand Island Bridge, you're the winner. Well, so we're sitting in the car when doing things like that. And we would run across these Burma Shave signs. And I just thought they were hilarious. I thought they were so clever. Some of you are going to know what I'm talking about. Some of you don't. Feel free to shoot me off an email if you don't. Or ask Chat GPT. I'm sure it's got a stupid opinion 12 miles long. And I was thinking, what could I do on computer, internet, that kind of replicates that? And that's where I came up with the idea of saying these corny things. And I sat down and I came up with about 15 different corny things, at least to start with. except that he had a good chance to unseat Petro, which would have been good for expats. Petro's going to be unseated anyway. He's not going to win. He only won because he bought all those votes on the coast. He barely won, and all those votes that he paid for is what put him over the top. Well, since then, he's become even more hated. People are not happy with him at all. And the other thing that I'll say about this, I thought he would make a very good candidate. I don't know that he would have won. He wasn't polling. He wasn't the top poller. He was getting somewhere around 30%. Considered a little young and a little inexperienced. There were cynical people that said, well, because his grandfather, great-grandfather was president, those connections automatically equals corruption. So there was a lot of stuff. And it was one of those deals that he was assassinated. He lingered in the hospital for a month or two, maybe 2 months, quite a period of time. And then he died. Well, then he becomes a martyr, and his popularity it's huge now after his death. But while he was running, it was so-so. Fico is by far the most popular candidate currently. So I get what you're saying, but that's kind of after he was killed. Prior to that, a lot of people never even heard of the guy. And I don't mean expat, I mean just in general. He was an up-and-comer, but he had a lot of ground to make up. Last time I saw on YouTube, Fico went into a mall, unannounced, unplanned, with a group of people, and people noticed him. And the mall has all these floors that are open, like balcony style. And hundreds of people stopped and just started chanting his name. Like everybody in sight. This was in Medellin. And it went from chanting for him and then fuera Petro, out Petro. So it's an interesting idea. No way to prove either way. I mean, you can't prove what I'm saying. That's my take on it. If I mentioned Fico in the past because he's so popular, I never mentioned Uribe because he wasn't. And you know how I feel about, potentially who's going to be in charge here. If I thought if he was really up and coming to the point where he's grabbing all the attention, I probably would have already talked about him. All right, enough of that. I have to do an ad read. Let me see if I can find one. Let's see. I've got Rumble Premium. I've got Rumble. I'm going to do the Rumble Premium again. Here we go. I think it was kind of long, but what the heck. So, here we go. Oh, not bad. You've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scene drops, and more from your favorite creator. I've got some videos that are going to go up at required in the Premium, and if you're on Rumble Premium, you'll be able to see those. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO in all caps at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. How was that? Painless, I hope. I don't feel as weird about it as I did before. It's still odd for me. All right, now let's get to our topic.
Guess what's hot and happening now? Straight from the source, we show you how. Ruin more, let's break it down. The main topic starts right now. Ow, ow.
Okay. Whew. Hold on. Turn the fan on. It gets hot in the studio with the monitors and all the lights and the computer, and it gets stuffy. I usually have the fan on before I even start. Just kind of forgot today. So today, a topic, I don't know that I've ever covered it as a topic, but I've done a zillion in Ecuador and here in Manizales, these cost of living things. And I hate them. And there's a million of them out there. And they all talk about the same thing. But it occurred to me this week, your fault, Turtle, not that we didn't talk about that, but a conversation that we had got me thinking about it after we had a chat. And there's just expenses that we don't really talk about in cost of living that exist. Some of them you're aware of, some of them maybe you never thought of. I will ask you in the live chat if you think of any that you've experienced, not even necessarily in Colombia, but just if you lived in Ecuador or anywhere else. Throw it in the live chat for us to consider. But today we're going to dig into this topic that's often overlooked, the hidden cost of living in Colombia. Now, everyone loves to talk about cheap rent, affordable food, low daily expenses, and yes, those things are all true. You can live like a king and, that kind of stuff. But if you're not careful, the extra costs can sneak up on you and ruin your budget. Let's talk about the ones that matter most. Big one here, visa renewals. Most everybody knows that things have changed. When I got here, when Turtle first got here, it was pretty painless. You didn't need anything, really. You needed a valid passport. You needed a simple computer print off of your retirement. And that was about it. They took care of, the embassy took care of the FBI background check. You didn't have to apostille. You didn't have to do any of that kind of stuff. But then it changed. And instead of getting a 3-year visa like I got, now they're issuing them. It still could be up to 3 years, but a lot of people are just getting 1 year. And that's calculated on the type of health insurance they have. I didn't need to have health insurance, but now you have to have a health insurance. So that certainly changed. Well, you know about it, so you can plan for it. However, if you're going to live here long term, you can't stay on a tourist stamp forever, right? So visa renewals cost money, not just for the visa itself, but you can have, like I use a visa rep in Pineda. You can get a lawyer. Don't recommend. There's translations that have to be done. Things have to be notarized. It adds up real quick. And if you don't plan for it, if you don't look at it, say, okay, if I have to renew this visa every year, it's going to cost me X, Y, Z. I think it's pretty important. You've got Currently, if you're here and you're trying to renew your visa, you've got to get a police report. So you have to pay for that online, and you have to pay to get it apostilled. It's got to be translated. That could be every year. Depending on what you need, you might have a document that needs to actually be the original shipped instead of a PDF file like the police report can be, in which case shipping costs a fortune. I got my Social Security "Are You Alive" letter. First one I ever got. Came to me in the mail here, which is pretty cool. And it only took 2 weeks, which is probably a record here. So I got it. So I was going to ship it back. So I take a look. I've got a program for my coffee. And so I look through there first because I have discount. Well, it only for a letter, because I registered it for packages. For a letter, it's full retail. And the only two that were available through my program was DHL and FedEx. The cheapest one through my program was DHL, and that was about $30 for this. Typically, if you take just a regular envelope, you go to DHL, it'll be between $50 and $70. Maybe something you never thought about. Maybe you didn't even know that you had to do something like that. So those things add up. If it's every year, you could add to your budget $1,000, $1,500 of costs that are never really addressed directly. Well, if you're only making $20,000, that $1,000, it can be pretty significant. Okay, next one, imported goods. So yes, local products are cheap. Relatively speaking, things will cost about 25% of what they would cost in the US. Eggs, milk, things, like that. But what if you want your favorite brand from back home? What if let's see. Well, first of all, let's talk about imported electronics. Anything over $100, you're going to get a import tax on it of somewhere around 25 or 30%. Certainly better than when I lived in Ecuador when it was 400%. It was crazy. Here, it's 25, 30%. You say, oh, Trump, da-da-da. No, it's got nothing to do with them. This is import to us. It's a tax that Colombia has always put on products from the United States. Products going to the United States in the past had no import or export tax on it. Went into the U.S. for free. But if you bought, a computer from the U.S., they would tack on an import tax. So if you figure, well, I got a laptop and in a couple of years it'll be obsolete, I'll just buy one in Colombia. You can certainly do that. But if you're buying it new from the United States, whatever price you thought it was going to be, 20 to 30% more. I lost my cameras and all that. So I was looking and figuring out what's the best camera I could get for the lowest amount of money. I'm searching. I figured it out. So, okay, that's awesome. And it was a relatively low price. It's under $400. So I go look. I can't do it now, but, future planning. So I go look and I see the price. Great. By the time the import tax was put on it, it's like, well, it's no longer cheap. It's almost up to $600. So these things matter. Now, cars, not so bad because you can buy a Chevy made in Colombia, for example. So there's a lot of vehicles that are actually made in Colombia. But something even as simple as peanut butter can cost 2 or 3 times what you'd pay in the US. So, well, you go shopping and a lot of things are like, oh my God, look at the prices. This is awesome. But you grab a couple things that you're, used to from back home, and your shopping cart all of a sudden skyrocketed because you paid $20 for something that would be $12 in the US. So because it's such a broad array of items, that's why it's never really talked about much in cost of living information, because who knows what it is you want and don't want. And particularly food items, because they're not huge ticket items. I mean, $12 isn't going to, kill anybody. You could throw those in the cart and not realize you could have something that would have cost you 100,000 pesos and it ended up costing 300,000 pesos because you threw some items from the US in there. Oh man, I want that. Oh, I want that. And not thinking that it would add up to so much. Sorry about that. Let me look at Turtle says, I sold my car and scooter. They were expensive to buy, expensive to maintain, and to operate. No mas. Yeah, that's definitely an issue. Health insurance and upgrades. Now, Colombia's EPS system is hugely affordable. I've got it. And many expats have it, but will upgrade to an additional private insurance to get faster service or not wait in line or cover certain things that are covered. If you've got Sura EPS, I don't even recommend it. It's certainly not necessary, but a lot of people will do that. And those premiums can be double or triple the cost of your EPS insurance. When people are talking about Colombia's so cheap, they rarely talk about the insurance premium plans that you can get. They aren't necessary, but if you're not living here, you haven't used the plans, you don't really know that. So if you're concerned, particularly if you're of retirement age, you're going to err on the side of safety and you're going to sink money into something you don't really need and you didn't know about the expense of that because it's never been brought up. Now, based on the new interpretation of the visa laws, you can no longer qualify for the cheap EPS insurance if you're here on an M visa, a retirement visa, for example. There's still options, but they're less affordable or as comprehensive as EPS. There's insurances you can get that, for example, $700-800 a year, you can have health insurance that will work for your visa. If you figure that out per month, it's not much more than the EPS would have cost, but it's nowhere near a comprehensive umbrella as EPS, which means there'll be more money out of pocket even with that insurance. All right, hold on here. Let's see. I worry about shopping at Price Smart with the tariffs, etc. It's not changed. That's the tariffs. There's no Trump tariff, for example, on anything you're going to buy here in Colombia. That's in the U.S. and so far, I just watched a money show talking about those, and so far they're being absorbed by the home country. Has nothing to do with us. The tariffs that are on things are the tariffs that have been on things, and they're the tariffs that are put on goods by Colombia. That hasn't changed. That's the thing. Colombia and the United States have very good terms historically and currently, despite some of the headlines you've seen, they're good trading partners. The only way it affects Colombia is that the U.S. is now putting on Colombian goods the same tariff that Colombia has had on U.S. goods. So it's leveling the playing field. Colombia isn't about to increase it because that would bring about an increase on the one that they need going into the U.S. So if anything, they may, eventually, maybe not with this guy, but the next president, he may very well renegotiate and drop the thing down. So, so it's not really about that. Visiting the farm back home, flights have become much more expensive. Yeah, that comes and goes. It certainly can be a consideration. This is my home, so I don't go anywhere. All right. Extra fees for foreigners. Now, this is a sore subject for me because I don't experience it, but you've got to be real about it. Sometimes just being a foreigner means you're going to pay more. It doesn't mean you should. I don't. But from renting an apartment to buying various services you may be asked for, higher deposits, which are not legal, but you have to know that, or guarantees that locals don't face. I mean, it's not necessarily unfair sometimes in certain circumstances, but it's still something you have to factor in. Now, if you educate yourself on these things before you purchase something, learn what those prices should be, and then stick with it and be willing to walk away, because they will call you back. If you're offering up a fair price, they're not going to let you slide by. So they're going to bring you back. And that's a mistake I see all the time. People say, well, I got gringoed. No, you didn't. If you were an idiot from Bogota with a lot of money, dressed very nice, they're going to try that too. They're just trying to get what the market will bear. And if you're willing to pay more for something, they're willing to take it. And they're not ashamed to ask for it. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it. I don't pay deposits for apartments, for example. But I know people that have 3 months, 6 months deposit down on the apartment. Why? It's not even legal, but they didn't know. They didn't know any better, so they didn't call the thing out. They were afraid they're going to lose the apartment. They wouldn't have, but that's how it goes. Furniture and appliance. There's very few furnished rentals, and the ones that are way overpriced. You're paying dearly for that furniture. In a matter of a few months, you could have just bought your own. But there's a lot of people that come here and they think about the price of the apartment, but they don't think about what it'll take to furnish it. So you have to think about that. And here's an item may seem like a small one, but to me it's a big one. Bed sheets. How about bed sheets? It's difficult to find bed sheets you want to sleep in. I don't like sleeping in sandpaper. I like soft bed sheets. And you can go to Exito, or you go to various Falabella, you go to different places. If you find, like Falabella, you can find really nice bed sheets, but the prices are insane. I mean, who wants to pay a few $100s for a set of bed sheets? So you can get them at best place is actually PriceSmart. Expensive, but reasonable for the quality. And you can get very good quality bed sheets. I ordered a set not too long ago through Mercado Libre that was a very good quality set, and they were almost the same price as in the U.S. But who would have thought about that? You think, bed sheet's going to cost me XYZ. Well, how about 8 times that? Cooking utensils. Most of the cooking utensils, if you cook, pots and pans, most of it's crap. Stuff that's not going to last. It's going to burn your food. It's cheap. They sell what the market will bear, and people hear that, there's only a few things that are critical to traditional cooking here, and all the rest, things that we would use, um, there's not as much of a market for it. So those things can get very expensive. Now, here's the big one. Before I get to the big one, I'll cover these chats, and then I'll get to, I think, the biggest one. Dan, if you currently type on a North American or Aussie keyboard, buying a laptop in Colombia may require you to relearn typing skills. Yeah, well, they use the Spanish keyboard is what he's talking about. You can find, I run into this because of what I do. I mean, I'm on my fourth laptop. I burn up keyboards. I do a lot of computer work, obviously. Usually, so far, I have found American versions, and I only have one Spanish keyboard, and I actually got that. It's a cheap one, and I got it for Sharik when she's here doing some kind of work. All the rest of mine are just regular English style keyboards, and I bought them here. But yeah, again, it's a matter of knowing. It's a matter of knowing what to do about that. At first blush, you may think that's all there is. You're thinking that. Not really the case, but if you don't know any better, then you just accept it. Visiting the farm back home. Oh, I mentioned that. My understanding, expats can no longer participate in EPS. No. M visas cannot. There's actually a way they can, but it's a little complicated. So essentially, the regulations interpret it as you cannot. I have it. Turtle's got it. As soon as you get to residential or resident visa, you are then allowed to have it. When I had my M visas, I was actually required by law to carry it. So, but that, like I say, next year, I fully expect that's going to change because the interpretation that they're using doesn't jive with the wording of the law. All right. Tommy, my wife will not let me go some places with her because of gringo prices. She gets upset with the people because of it. And so I just wait in the car or walk around somewhere else for some time until you get the hang of how to handle it. I think I had a leg up on a lot of people because I've traveled so much in my life and I've lived in other countries. And so I think it's something I overcame a long time ago. So from my perspective, it's a non-issue here. But I have to be realistic. It's not a non-issue for a lot of people to come here that it's a new phenomenon or they haven't figured out how best to cope with it. I don't ever get gringo priced. I tend to be on the aggressive side. I don't mean aggressive like I'm going to fight you, but I'm not shy about defining what I'm willing to pay. If you don't have a handle on it, it really is best to find somebody native to go and lock in a price for you. Even if you pay them a few dollars, pay the taxi, buy them lunch, go there and make a deal for me because I'm not quite sure of it. But maybe it's the stuff that I buy. I don't think so because I get all kinds of different things. But also, for a lot of things, one of the best places to purchase things, if you're willing to wait 1 or 2 days, is through Mercado Libre online. It's like Colombia's Amazon. And there, you're just paying the price. They don't have, okay, here's the price. And by the way, here's the gringo price. The price is the price. But the biggest thing you can do is research the value of what it is that you're trying to do. Take the time to look these things up. And then when you go and they hit you up with a price that's not fair, you give them an ultimatum. If it doesn't work, walk away. You can always get it on Mercado Libre. In Ecuador now, they sell microfiber sheets, soft, not cotton, but cheaper. Yeah, I don't like those. I get hot in those, but it's a good point. The particular type that you like, it doesn't matter so much as getting a decent quality. That in Ecuador, what they used to have is like they were like sandpaper, and like everything else, they've expanded their horizons somewhat. Credit card interest rates are huge here. They are. And that's if you're going to use credit card, really the same everywhere. It's just it can hurt you more here. Use the credit card, you want to pay it off, right away. Use it to get your miles or whatever it is, benefits you're getting from that card, but then pay it off so you're not stuck with the huge rates. All right, so I did the sheets and cooking utensils, and we're up to the big one. How about exchange rate? When I came here, it was around 3,800. Yeah, it was around 3,800, maybe a little less. But that amounts to we'll take the average retirement, or at least average of 2 years ago, $1,500. 2 years ago, that was the average retirement from the Social Security. So at 3,800, that's 5,700,000 pesos on that $1,500. Then it got as high as 5,000 pesos to the dollar. Now on that same 1,500, it became 7,500,000 pesos. That's a 1,800,000 peso difference, or about $450 a month swing at today's rate, around 4,000. $450 from when it was at 5,000 to 3,800. When you're on a fixed retirement, that's massive. You're either down from what you get, 5,700,000, or up to a high of 7,500,000. That's a lot of extra money to do things if you're up there. But suppose you come in and it was at 5,000 and you spend most of the money you think you have, be it an apartment or whatever it is, you lock yourself in, and then the rate drops down. And now all of a sudden, oh crap. I've mentioned this a million times. You want to set, when you're setting up prices, you want to set the low benchmark. Okay, it hasn't been like that in 15 years, but that's the one I'm not going to spend beyond what it would be in case it ever falls to that level. Now we haven't fallen back to the 3,800, but I benchmark it at that. And yeah, I whine about, my cost of rent and why and all that stuff, but that has everything to do with, yeah. You're right. It was 2,800. Yeah, Turtle is completely right. What was I thinking? When we came to Colombia, because I came right behind him, the rate was 2,800 to the dollar. Well, that's all right. So let me quick. All right, 1,500 times 2,800. 4,200,000. Huge. From 4 million to 7 million, 7.5 million. The range got up to that. Yeah, I was living the highlight when it got up around 5,000. All of a sudden, I had money in my pocket that I hadn't had. Yeah, so for me, I spend that accordingly, and the only thing that gets me is is the channel, the expense every month of the channel, which causes me to whine about it. I tell you guys about it because, hey, I'm thinking about doing such and such with the channel, and you've been with me for 7 of the last 8+ years. I figure I should say something instead of just making a decision or running it by you to get your opinion where you want to go with this and like that. That's what it's about. It's not really I get on and whine about it. I just feel obligated. I should talk about things before I just make a decision. One thing I like to is when they ask how many installments or payments I want to make on a purchase. Quantas quote. Yeah. If you pay something on a credit card, and let's say it's 1,000,000 pesos, and I don't want to pay that million, I want to stretch it out. So whenever you use a credit card, they'll ask you how many payments. So I always say one because you can always go online and change it later. But you could tell them 12 months or 36 months. So I'm buying this for 1,000,000 pesos, $250, but I want to pay for it over the course of 36 months. You could do that right at the register. And as long as the month hasn't closed out, you can go back into the website and change it to whatever. Once it clicks over for the month, then that amount gets locked in. So if it was 1,000,000 pesos and you told them one quota, then you're going to owe the 1,000,000 pesos for that month. So you've lost your opportunity to do it in longer payments. But you have to be careful with that because you could just keep putting everything on longer payments. Next thing you know, you got a few $1,000s out there that you're paying a very high interest rate on. So it's just a little different how they do it here. Would a good place to set a budget be to just set it 1,000 pesos below current exchange rate? I would say, yeah, that's probably reasonable. Or you could go to the XE exchange rate site, xe.com, I think it is. And you can look at this week, last month, last year, last 10 years. You could take a look at it. I'm tempted to have a topic on exchange rate as far as what impacts it, because Turtle brought up something. He sent me an article about the exchange rate and why it's going to do what in the future and all of that. And I'm looking at it and going, that's the exact opposite of what I understand it to be. And what I understand it to be has been pretty reasonable historically for me to somewhat predict the direction it's going to go. You can't predict what it's going to be to the exact, but you can predict whether it's going to go up or whether it's going to go down. And I don't mean daily or even weekly, but as the trend, because it's like the stock market, it can go up and down every day, but over the course of the month or 3 months or whatever, you can have, it'll be higher than it was prior. It's very much like watching the stock market. I was in a conversation with Turtle a while ago. I was telling him what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to improve. And there's an article saying, well, because it's been getting worse, and it has somewhat, not by huge amounts, but somewhat, that it'll get even worse if in the United States they drop the interest rate. Well, that's not really the case, because if they drop the interest rate, it'll actually improve. It'll make the dollar stronger. And this article is the exact opposite. Am I smarter than the article? I don't know. I'm just saying that I've looked at this so much because I live with this all the time, and I've studied and studied and studied that I have my own opinion on it. And what was interesting is that Colombia has been dropping their interest rate on the pesos, which has made the peso stronger, which has directly affected the exchange rate. Well, if that's the way it works for Colombia, why wouldn't that work for any other country in an exchange rate? Well, it would. So the the facts on the ground says that article was wrong. My experience and everything I've looked at said the article was wrong, but it could turn out to be right. Who knows? These things have so much variation to them. It's such a difficult thing to predict, but I truly believe that when the exchange rate or when the interest rate in the U.S. drops later this fall and going into next year, the dollar, as a matter of course, because it'll have much less debt on the book, the dollar will become stronger, and a stronger dollar gives us a better exchange rate. So what do we do? What's the bottom line of all this? Well, living in Colombia is still far cheaper than many places, and on average, it's about 25% of most places in the United States. But you can't just look at the rent and groceries and, a few, main items. You've got to set aside a monthly cushion. You have to figure out exchange rate, figure out what that minimum is likely to be. And then you want to look at, hidden costs, Visa. All right. So you figure it's going to be $400, $500 because that's what Facebook said. You hadn't figured it was going to be $1,500. So, and you thought it was going to be every 3 years, but it's every year. So you have to take all that into account. Imported goods, health insurance, what are you doing with that? All the little extras that come with being a foreigner. You're an expat, so it's not the same. You've got a period of time that would it takes a learning curve to figure out how best to live at the best price. Like I say, I had a kind of a jump start because I've lived in other countries and I've traveled a lot. And just prior to coming here, I came from Ecuador, living there for 3 years. So I went through all this. If I had forgotten, that would remind me. So I go through it in Ecuador, and then I come here. I was well prepared. I've been through a lot of the hurdles, but you're coming here, first place, second place. Maybe you were somewhat isolated, never really thought about it. Maybe it's all been on vacation where you had so much money. These things didn't even matter, because if you're living off USA money in a place like here, that little bit doesn't matter, except when you're living here, that little bit becomes big bits because you're on a limited income and it's nowhere near the amount that you were used to living with. It just so happens that I can live a middle to upper middle class life in Colombia on the money back in the US I'd be eating cat food. So, it's still the benefits of living here far outweigh these negatives, but you just don't want to get yourself caught in a box. So it's so important that you contemplate all of these little extras, ask a lot of questions so you don't get any kind of nasty surprises. So in the chat, or in the comments, or in an email, what hidden costs have you run into in Colombia if you're living here or you're on vacation? I think it's a pretty valuable topic. What do we got here? Oh, you asked me that one. No, I repeated that one. I would enjoy that type of conversation for a show. Yeah, I will bring this up again. I am well equipped to be able to bring a guest in, or two or three. If you guys are interested in discussing a topic with me live on air, maybe you've got a contrary opinion of something. Maybe you think I'm crazy when it comes to don't use an Uber. Maybe you're in love with Uber and you want to have a little debate with me about Uber versus taxi. Um, I, I'd love to do that. I realize I'm just a talking head. And if a topic interests you, it can be cool. But if it doesn't, it can be boring as hell. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to, waste people's time and like that. I want this to have some kind of value. So we have the ability to do that. I will also mention that you can send me a 1-minute rebuttal or comment on video. So just like here, I'm on video. I could send this in and say, I think you're crazy because XYZ, and click on the thing and I receive it. I could take that clip and put it in next week. So instead of reading occasional comments, which I rarely do, but instead of because people can read them themselves, I only read them if like, oh, that was a good point that I never thought about or something like that. But that's something it would be more interesting. That's why I don't read comments, kind of dry. But I could play that up to a minute clip. It doesn't cost anything. You're welcome to do that. You just have to shoot me off an email requesting. I'll send you a link and you can post it there. It doesn't have to be, it can be positive reinforcement. It could be a life experience to add to the conversation, or you can just think I'm crazy and, say why. Because the thing is, a lot of this stuff, it's not a right or wrong. It's level of experience. Everything I tell you is my level of experience. It's what I've experienced. And so I'm going to view things a certain way, but I'm not living in Medellin. I'm not living in Bogota. I'm not living in Cartagena. I'm living in the Coffee Triangle. And there are differences. If I ever did a dating thing, it's absolutely completely different here in the Coffee Triangle than it would be in Medellin, for example. There'd be way more warnings in Medellin. And the biggie you didn't mention is inflation. Yeah, I didn't mention it because inflation hits pretty much worldwide. And so if it goes up a certain percentage in the United States, probably going to go up that percentage, maybe even a little more here. But it's still going to be a 25 to 1, 20.25 to 1, a quarter of the cost here as compared to there. And why are you always saying the United States? Well, I'm from there, and most of the viewers are from there. Although there's a lot of Canadian viewers, there's quite a few actually from England. We've got Juka from Finland. We've got some Australian viewers. So we have viewers from around the world. But the stats, when I look at it, I pull around half of the viewers are from the United States. And so because I'm from there and most people are from there as a particular country, I get the second largest group are actually in Colombia, and then Canada, England. I forget after that. I look at it occasionally. It doesn't change very much. All right. Any comments you want to make today? I'm gonna wrap this thing up. I can't believe I went long. I had no intention of going long. I actually thought I was going to go short today. What about always having change for the parking attendants waving the red? Yeah. It's funny. I got frustrated. I had to go in my car this week to 2 different places. And in both cases, I got to back out into a busy street. 4-lane, median in the middle. So there's 2 lanes. I got to back out. I got a backup camera. It's a small car. I've been driving for going on 60 years. You know, it's no, I guess over 60. It's nothing. You know, I can drive. And I got this yokel back there waving this thing, and he's telling me how to go. All right, well, I can ignore that. But then he's standing in the where I need to go. Move your ass. I'm trying, come on. Before the traffic gets here. You know, it's like, what are we talking about? When you park in a spot at any kind of business, there will be somebody there who keeps an eye on the vehicles for you and helps you with traffic. And they do sometimes. They'll go out and stand there and stop the traffic so that you can go back. Those guys are cool. But some are just idiots. And I had 2 in a row this past week that I just want to get out and choke them because you're holding me up. I could have been gone by now. Now, there's no obligation to tip them at all. And there's no any kind of set amount if you do want to tip them. Depending on what it is, sometimes I will. There's a place that I go to maybe once or twice a month, and it's got a guy in a wheelchair that does this, and he does a really good job. And because of his wheelchair, he's very careful about not getting in the way. So he doesn't get in my way. He moves around very quick. He watches if he sees you coming. He remembers people in their cars. And if he sees you coming back to the car, he positions himself so he's ready for you. And so I give him a couple thousand pesos. What's that? 50 cents. Not a lot. He's very happy. Those 2 yokels this week, I didn't give him a dime. I would have liked to give him a boot in the ass, for sucking at what they do. They can be very useful. It's nice in some areas to have somebody kind of keep an eye on your car, and they do. So all that's pretty cool. He's careful about very often the person doing it is careful about bringing somebody in, making sure they don't open the door into your car. And I know that because they're very careful about me opening my door. So, but if I were to tip everyone on a busy day, I could go around and end up, maybe 20,000 pesos. And if I did that very often, that could certainly add up. The cost of a fare, if I go to Pareda, 20,000 there, 20,000 back, plus the gas, wear and tear on the car, all adds up. You have to figure, if you got a car, at some point you're going to need brakes. What's the cost of doing brakes? How do you amortize that over the course of the year or of the 5 years or whatever it is? You really have to give a lot of this thought if you're on a limited income, because these things, I hadn't thought about that. Well, that's what today's about. Think about it. Some of them also use boxes to cover your windshield from the direct sun. I've never had those, but I've seen it. Maybe because I've got pretty good tint. I don't know, but I have seen that. And what I see even more often is covering the seats of a motorcycle. That's pretty useful because, it rains quite a bit. And you come out and you can sit on a dry seat. That's got some value. But as does the direct sun, because, can you imagine sitting on a motorcycle and some of the direct sun we get here? You better have 2 layers of pants on or you're going to lose some skin. Yeah, good point. Very good point. All right, that's all I got today. Shoot me off some emails. Thanks for putting up with my my private coffee ad. By the way, available here in Colombia. It's very reasonable. It's expensive in the United States, but it's no more expensive than any other that you're going to see in Amazon that's of similar quality. Even though Mocha, you're not going to find. I've yet to find. I actually had Shariq watching for it because she's hitting a lot of farms now in a broad area. She is yet to find Mocha. She asked the boss at her place if they've never lab tested any. I may have the only Mocha here in Colombia. Now, I'm not saying that because I know it. I just can't find any so far. If you know of any, let me know. It's an amazing coffee and extremely rare. So anyway, I got inventory to fill in the shelf too. So I need to get this sold. So let's get a move on here. All right. Let's close this out. Here we go. Thank you all. Juka, thank you. That was amazing today. Very much. That's going in the camera fun. I've got to get a camera again. This time I'm going to weld it to my arm or something. So thank you all. I hope you appreciated today's topic. Not sure how it's going to go over. I'll find out in emails later. And I appreciate all the viewers. I appreciate everybody that's come to Rumble. And I really mean that stuff when I talk about appreciation. It's real. You keep this channel going week after week, month after month. And damn, what would I do without it? Well, probably travel around, go to the hot springs, use that extra money that I don't have to put into crazy subscriptions and rent a spa motel every weekend and go out and have sushi dinners. But who wants that? You know, it's much better to sit behind a computer screen and work your tail off. I'll see you next week.
Oh,